A new way to enjoy Pokemon with your Mii. My Pokemon Ranch, where Pokemon and your Mii can interact together, returns with support for Pokemon Platinum version. My Pokemon Ranch, Platinum version. Start out with just a few Pokemon and a small ranch. Watch Pokemon play with one another, interact with your Mii, and see all kinds of behaviors and activities that you normally wouldn't get to see. You can store up to 1,500 Pokemon caught in Pokemon Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum versions. As more Pokemon arrive, your ranch will continue to grow larger and larger. The ranch owner, Haley, will bring a new Pokemon to the ranch every day. If you bring Haley the Pokemon she's looking for, she may even trade Pokemon with you. You can take photos of your ranch and save up to 30 pictures in an album. Share them with friends through the Wii message board. Or save them to an SD card and view them on your computer. Spend every day together with your Pokemon in My Pokemon Ranch, Platinum version.
That's right, everyone. After over 17 years, the Platinum update of My Pokemon Ranch is finally compatible with English Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum. This video will serve as a guide on how to connect your copy to the new patch, talk about what made the development so tricky, and then go over all the new features exclusive to the Platinum update. Also, I'd like to shout out Rebecca Drumish for doing the narration on our recreation of the original commercial for the Japanese version of this patch that you just saw. The two pieces of hardware you'll need to use this new patch are a Wii or Wii U console that can run Wii Homebrew, and the other is a DS console capable of running DS Homebrew, whether that be via a flash cart or 3DS Homebrew options like Twilight Menu++. If you don't have one or both of these, you can follow the guides from Wii.hacks.guide and 3DS.hacks.guide respectively. In order to use this patch, you will need your own copy of My Pokemon Ranch as well. This patch only contains the new features and does not contain the game itself. There's a step-by-step guide in the description on how to use Wii Homebrew to apply the patch to your existing copy of My Pokemon Ranch. And if you're updating from an existing Ranch save file, I will warn you that the update changes the save format to account for the increased storage space, and you won't be able to use this updated save file with the base game anymore after upgrading. This won't affect any of your stored Pokemon as you update, but if you want to keep a backup save file that's compatible with the base game, you should make one before updating. Once you have a way to run DS Homebrew and a patch applied to your version of My Pokemon Ranch, you should now be able to connect your unmodified English copy of Diamond, Pearl, or Platinum to the Ranch. In order to facilitate the transfer, we use a piece of DS Homebrew called MPR Connect written by Mount. Simply boot it up, insert your English copy of Diamond, Pearl, or Platinum, and press Start to begin searching for the Wii. And on the Wii end, you simply select Connect to DS from the left side of the menu as you would normally. Once your Wii and DS find each other, you'll be able to deposit and withdraw Pokemon into the Platinum version. Currently, this patch only exists fully in English. We are working on a PAL version with support for French, German, Italian, and Spanish, but do need some help translating it. If you're fluent in one or more of these languages, flag me down on social media and help us with the translation effort. But why do we need to jump through these hoops in order to connect to this new patch? Well, to understand that, let me take you through roughly how My Pokemon Ranch connects to the Nintendo DS. When you select Connect to DS, the Wii begins broadcasting a signal that includes which language it's in. When entering the options menu on the title screen of a Generation 4 Pokemon game, if the DS picks up this signal and the game's language matches, the Connect to Wii option will appear. Selecting this, the game goes into a new screen that attempts to connect to the Wii and download the program that facilitates depositing and withdrawing Pokemon. It's this connection sequence that contains the majority of barriers to getting a custom version of the ranch to talk to an unmodified game. There are two main hurdles that join forces to make sure that everything that happens is above board. First up is the SRL file that the Wii is in charge of sending over that handles the withdrawing and depositing of Pokemon. This program reads the inserted cartridge and checks for the title menu graphics in the cartridge data. If the check matches what it would expect to see running on the same language Diamond, Pearl, or Platinum, it allows the connection. If the file is missing or doesn't match what it expects, the connection is refused. Second up is the script that handles downloading the SRL called EOO.DAT, which performs a signature check on what the Wii sends over. A signature is basically a digital stamp from Nintendo that allows the game to compare if the program is approved to be run, and that it hasn't been modified. Even if we patch the transfer program from here to check for the title screen files on English Platinum, that would invalidate the signature and the game will refuse to run it. While bypassing signature checks has been possible on the DS for almost 20 years now, the unique manner of having to launch EOO.DAT from within another game meant that existing exploits wouldn't be able to circumvent this check. And even though we have access to powerful arbitrary code execution glitches in Platinum that could theoretically allow us to modify EOO.DAT while it's loading, that would be very difficult as the game immediately boots into it when the file is retrieved. On top of everything, this all happens in the title screen menu, which, while not untouchable with Ace, complicates any intercepting of EOO.DAT even further when we have to keep the glitch persisting through a soft reset. So it's here that the project stagnated a bit. While we did have a full English translation of the game that could still connect to Japanese Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum by just leaving the transfer program completely as is, we knew that very few players who wanted the patch to exist in English would also have Japanese games to connect with. And getting this patch to be as close as possible to how it would have existed if they made it back in 2008 was very important to the team. As the years came and went with this project more or less in the same state, we had many technically savvy Pokemon researchers examine the problem, and all of them concluded that something would have to be done to EOO.DAT in order to be able to bridge the gap with a custom SRL. Enter Mal. Mal learned of this project from me talking about it in the Pokemon Ribbons Discord, which now makes 4 times that someone from that one Discord has solved a very specific problem with something I'm working on. Mao joined the project at the beginning of June this year, and was immediately able to identify what would need to be patched in both EOO.DAT and the SRL file to get the connection working with English games. Instead of intercepting EOO.DAT from within Pokemon Platinum, they wrote MPR Connect to access the Gen 4 game inside the cartridge slot, extract EOO.DAT, patch out the signature check, and then boot into it. And it turns out removing the signature check was all that it would take to allow us to send an edited version of the transfer software to the DS and make our own version that runs in English. And within less than a day of joining, they were able to connect to the ranch and run a modified version of the SRL with a custom splash screen on an unmodified cartridge. The next and larger step was to get the SRL to play nice with English games. Maybe not so surprisingly, this program really expected to be running on a Japanese copy of the game. And so when it goes to retrieve the text from the cartridge, it grabs it from the wrong places, as they're shuffled around in other game languages. So after adjusting which text banks the program was pointed to, it was able to grab the correct text. Then it was a matter of translating some hard-coded strings that were part of the SRL and were still in Japanese after loading the English text from the cartridge. From here, the development of the new English transfer program went back and forth much the same way for every aspect of the SRL. Some part of the SRL would be a little bit wonky after being translated into English, and the technical team would then patch it up so it looked correct. There were honestly so many changes to the SRL that if I listed all of them it would be half the video's runtime, so I'll just throw Mao's short list of the most important changes on screen and you can pause if you'd like to read it. And there will be a full changelog eventually in the MPR Connect GitHub page. And having used this new version myself, it's incredibly faithful to how it would have existed if it released back in the day. But now we get to the actual Platinum patch features. Not to sound too obvious, but the biggest of these is compatibility with Pokemon Platinum. Right off the bat, you can see when we connect with Platinum we get a Silver and Gold streak Nintendo DS Zeppelin rather than the usual Blue or Pink when connected with Diamond or Pearl. The biggest thing connecting with Platinum allows is for us to deposit Platinum exclusive forms, like Origin Form Giratina by having it hold the Grizius Orb, and the at the time event exclusive Rotom Appliance forms. Interestingly, these form changes were extremely limited back in 2008. With the Grizius Orb being locked out of being traded due to not existing in Diamond and Pearl. Likewise, each of Rotom's appliances is limited to a single one found in Rotom's room. Because of this, and because My Pokemon Ranch can only store Pokemon from up to 8 different cartridges at a time, Only 8 Origin form Giratina and 8 of each of Rotom's appliance forms can be deposited into the same ranch at a time, at least through normal gameplay. On the topic of Rotom, while one of its alternate forms is deposited into the ranch, the corresponding appliance will remain absent from Rotom's room. Once Rotom is withdrawn, there will be a message that it reverted its form and the appliance will return. Now this does mean that if you delete your ranch save file while any appliances are still inside, that would permanently lock you out of that appliance on that save file. So, don't do that? The last of the new Platinum exclusive forms is Shaymin's Sky form, which is a bit of a special case as it can't be deposited into the PC without reverting back to land form in this generation. Instead, this update introduces the Flower, a new toy that can randomly appear in the daily toy boxes. If a Shaymin interacts with the Flower during the day, it will temporarily transform into Sky form. Once night falls on the ranch, Shaymin will revert back to land form, and interacting with the Flower during the night won't allow it to change back. Shaymin will also revert if an event cutscene starts or if you reopen the game. So as far as I'm aware, it can't be seen in any event cutscenes that would be unavailable to land form like a flying type ring dance or a sky parade. Surprisingly, one thing that doesn't cause Shaymin to revert is being frozen by either an ice type attack or the snowman toy, which to be fair is very rare to see happen when Shaymin's new 4x weakness to ice has it staying far away from both. Speaking of event cutscenes and toys, the Platinum update added 13 new events and 12 new toys. I've already made 2 independent videos covering all the event cutscenes and all the toys in this game, so I'll direct you to watch them if you want to see what they look like. Something I neglected to mention in that old events video, however, because it hadn't been documented yet, is that the Platinum patch also updated some of the base game events to have new variants. While I can't know if I've discovered all of them, the variants I've seen include a new version of the Totem Pole event that exclusively uses Natu and Xatu for the body, and always includes a Zapdos that perches on top, a new version of the Hop Hop dance that features Magikarp, Igglybuff, Hoppip, Azurill, Spoink, Baneri, and Lopunny, all Pokemon that learn the move Splash and have special bouncing animations when the camera focuses on them. And finally, there's an alternate chorus that instead of featuring Jigglypuff's evolution line singing the Jigglypuff song, features 3 or more Politoed just yelling at the camera, a reference to its Pokédex entry from Pokemon Silver. This update also brought massive quality of life changes to this game, to the point where once you've played it, the base game feels like a demo version. One feature that was directly touted in the game's commercial was the increased capacity of 1,500 Pokemon, up from the 1,000 in the base game. Unfortunately, Haley doesn't have any new special mythical trades for reaching ranch level 26, but this expanded storage capacity is so large you could store 2 of every Pokemon species and still have more than 500 slots to spare. You can also store up to 30 pictures in your photo album instead of the usual 20 before having to move some to the SD card, perfect for those who love to take a lot of photos on their ranch. The game also now has more variants in the time of day themes, with the introduction of Soft Sunlight and Platinum Farm alongside the classic Leisurely Walk theme, each of which has their own day and night variant. On that topic, the BBS menu now has a music selector that not only allows you to change between these 3 main themes, but any of the context-specific tracks like the one that plays while connecting to the DS, event cutscenes, Haley's introduction each day, the new save file intro cutscene, and even the parade music. There's even the option to turn the music off without having to mute the entire game, which is a little bit eerie, but it's nice for people like me who might want to put some other background music on in videos. Speaking of the BBS, the Wanted Pokemon screen will now display instructions for how to catch them in Pokemon Platinum. And for those of you who are die-hard Club Look-See fans, this update added 3 new Club Look-See Miis, as well as a new option that allows you to visit any previously visited Club Look-See Ranch on demand. Finally, there's also a few aesthetic changes between versions of Ranch, the easiest to spot being the texture of the grass, which updates to be this alternating puzzle piece design instead of a grid of repeating squares. Not only does the grass in the ranch itself change, but so does the background of the PC boxes while withdrawing Pokemon. A more subtle change in this patch revolves around the special Met location Blue Sparkle system. Pokemon met in Fateful Encounters or in special Met locations will have blue sparkles coming off of them when the camera is in focus, and this is most obvious in the base game with Pokemon from Heart Gold and Soul Silver, as any Pokemon from the Johto games will be considered a special Met location, as well as any other Met location that didn't exist in Diamond and Pearl. The Platinum update removed all Johto Met locations from this list, even including event-exclusive Met locations like Sinjoh Ruins, which are usually considered special. This decision is intriguing to me because it means the developers were aware of which Met locations had been reserved for the development of Heart Gold and Soul Silver and bothered to update them to not count as special. Makes me wonder if they had plans to do a Heart Gold and Soul Silver patch later but dropped it when the game continued to sell poorly. It's not all removals with the list of special Met locations in this update, however, as 2 locations that hadn't been officially revealed yet in Diamond and Pearl were updated to cause blue sparkles now that players would be accessing them in Pokemon Platinum, these being New Moon Island and the Hall of Origin. New Moon Island was updated to make it so that Darkrai from the Member Card event would have blue sparkles, as unlike Shaman, they didn't put the Fateful Encounter flag on Darkrai from the event location. Hall of Origin being updated here is notable as the entire Azure Flute was never distributed, even though other games like Heart Gold and Soul Silver and this Platinum update both include features that treated it as though it was meant to happen. Also, for those curious, Pokemon hatched in special Met locations don't inherit the blue sparkle effect, and are treated as though they're from their pickup location. Every event distribution exclusive Met location is treated as special, even the unused ones, though this is largely redundant when you consider that any Pokemon that has a distribution exclusive Met location is also a Fateful Encounter. Last up on the aesthetic side of things, there are some new additions for Pokemon behaviors that play when the camera focuses on specific species of Pokemon. For example, Voltorb and Electrode will now explode when the camera is on them, and Sheldor will run up behind Slowpoke and threaten to bite its tail, both of which are behaviors I don't believe happen in the base game. While I'm sure there are still more unique behaviors that we haven't discovered yet, we unfortunately didn't get a strategy guide for the Platinum patch, so let me know if you find any interesting ones when you try this patch out for yourself. In any case, that's everything new with the Platinum version of My Pokemon Ranch that I know about. A huge thank you to everyone on the translation team and those who worked on the technical side to make this patch work as authentically as possible. It's amazing to see all these features that were once locked away come to light. And while I don't think the new wave of interest in Pokemon Ranch will culminate in anything so crazy as a sequel for the Switch that connects to Pokemon Home, it's truly wonderful to be able to share this project with all of you. Thanks for waiting patiently for this project to release, and thanks for watching.